Hello, my name is Victoria Pendragon. Welcome to my alternate reality. Today I'm going to tell you a story that happened back in 1989, probably. I don't remember exactly because that was a long time ago. At the time, I was in the midst of a disease process called scleroderma, which is an autoimmune disease that slowly and painfully turns your entire body inside and out into scar tissue. I was dying, and as luck would have it, we were also going bankrupt. So, we had to go to bankruptcy court. And I was very nervous. I was very sick as well. Probably didn't help. And I was imagining that we were going to go to this huge building and there would be a judge in black robes and I was going to be mortified and, just every awful scenario you could think of. And when we got to the building, which was in Norristown, it was a horrifying, old, dilapidated office building, sandstone or something. I don't think it had been power washed in ever. And the parking lot was in the back, and you went through the back door and up to the third floor of what was probably a 5-story building. So just about as mediocre a space as you could imagine. We met the lawyer there, and when we went into the room, into the courtroom, it was odd. The room itself was odd. It was a long room, substantially wide, but longer than it was wide, and divided up spatially very strangely. The back third of the room was completely empty. There was a linoleum floor, nothing else, nothing else. A tall window on one side. Then no windows at all, and the middle third of the room was filled with what looked like church pews. And in the church pews in various places were little discrete groups of people with their lawyers. The front third of the room, which actually did have windows across it, had a long, long set of wooden tables lined up, behind which there were numerous official people doing things with paper. And off to one side, the person who was clearly the judge, and I say clearly, she was not wearing robes or anything, but she was the person that had other people sitting in front of her, while everybody else was doing paper things. So between them and the pews was a full third of the room, empty again. Linoleum floors, really a pretty dumpy kind of a place. And so I felt much more relaxed because of that. I knew that all we were there to do was sign papers and answer questions. And it was pretty clear from my appearance, which was compellingly strange, that I was not well. So I didn't think that the bankruptcy would be an issue from the standpoint of, were we making this up? No, we're not. So we took our seats, and as we waited in the seats, I noted that we were about halfway in the middle of the pew area. Couldn't hear anything. Couldn't hear anything from the people at the front. Couldn't hear anything between the judge and I'm not saying like we could hear little whispers. No, we couldn't hear anything. We couldn't even hear the people in the seats around us talking, even though they too, of course, were trying to speak in hushed voices. But it was very odd. It was as though sound were simply sucked out of the room. So we felt free to discuss what we needed to discuss, and did. And then ultimately it came to be our turn. And we got to the front, and the judge handled everything very efficiently and effectively. It was minutes that it took to do this thing. But when she was done, she leaned forward to me and very conspiratorially, she said, "Would you mind telling me what's happened to you?" Now, the reason she asked is because I said I looked strange. I truly looked. I looked a little more like an alien than a person. The skin on my face was stretched really tightly back. My mouth didn't open very much at all because it was stretched so tight. And my eyes kind of popped a little bit. My hands, which are now like this, and I can do, see, I've got a tremendous range of motion here. At the time, they were just like this. They didn't move at all. My arms didn't move, they were bent. My legs were bent, so I walked strangely. That's because the skin had all pulled so tight that I was just rigid. I wrote a book about it called My 3 Years as a Tree. That you can see on my website if you're interested. And that's victoriapendragon.com. And I told her through tears what was wrong with me, because it was hard not to cry talking about that. And it hurt. It always hurt. It was awful. And when we got done, we rose and walked down the center aisle of the pews, lawyer in front, headed for the door, then myself, then Dodd behind me. Dodd was my husband at the time. And just as the three of us passed the last of the pews, I noticed that there was a couple who was standing in the far left corner of the room opposite the door that we had come in, which was over on the far right. And they appeared to be walking towards us. I supposed they could have been going down the aisle or something. But she was looking directly at me and heading not towards the aisle, which was kind of behind me, so her angle would have been different. She was headed for me. And as she got closer, she put her hands out to me. And they were normal hands and normal arms, and so they stretched out. And I could see that I was to put my hands in her hands. And so when I got close enough, I did. Behind her was a tall, bald man, also elderly. I would have guessed they might be in their late 70s. I was at the time in my late 40s, as was Dodd, who was behind me. And so Dodd hung back a little, her man hung back a little, and she took my hands and said to me, "You're going to be okay. I had what you had once. And now I just take a little something." I didn't know what she said then. I still don't know what she said. Something in my head told me steroid, but that wasn't it. But it's something S or C on the beginning of it. But it wasn't steroid, but I sort of extrapolated that in my head. And then she squeezed my hands a little, and she stepped back from me. She didn't turn around and walk back to the corner. She didn't go down the aisle. She withdrew, and the man behind her withdrew. And as they did, I felt as though I was being released from a kind of a bubble of some sort that I hadn't noticed was there. It was a very strange sensation, but a very definite release. She pulled back, and I felt, whew. And all I did was head for the door where the lawyer was, and Dodd followed behind me. We didn't say anything. When we walked outside the door, the lawyer stopped us and said to me, "Do you know those people?" And I confessed that I didn't. And he said, "Well, what did they want?" I guess being a lawyer, he's prone to ask all these questions. And I said that she wanted to wish me well, which certainly was true. She had. We didn't say another word. We got into the elevator. We went down. We went our separate ways in the parking lot. Dodd and I got into our car. I looked at him. He looked at me. And I said, "I think I know who that was." And he smiled. He did too. It was us. From some other dimension. I don't know which one. I don't think this one. We're not a couple anymore. Well, one of the best things about this experience was that it was witnessed. He witnessed it. The lawyer witnessed it. So, even though it's a mystery still, what exactly happened there, what went down, it's like magic and wonderful, and I will treasure it always. And Treasure your own experiences, the magical ones. Don't question them. Take them into your heart. Because she was right. I was okay. Take care.